Tonight, NBC5 investigates the daring Chicago prison break that made national headlines. NBC5's Rob Stafford has new information tonight on how the convicts escaped. Rob.
Allison, tonight NBC5 investigates evidence of clear warning signs in the days leading up to the escape of two bank robbers. Warnings about how the escape was going to happen, and even warnings about one of the inmates who would scale down the side of the building. Inmates Joseph Banks and Kenneth Connolly tied together bed sheets and climbed down 17 stories at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in December of last year.
It's extremely embarrassing.
Correctional Officer Gary Mills has worked at the MCC more than 20 years and is a top union representative. Mills was not at the facility that day, but says he's talked with many people who were.
Should the administrators have seen this escape coming?
There were warning signs, yes.
Obvious ones?
Oh, obvious.
Mills says before the escape, a memo was sent to top prison officials, warning to check the windows for cracks and openings because a rope had been spotted being dropped from the south side of the building.
Before the escape?
About a week before the escape.
A week before the escape?
Yes.
Was the facility put on lockdown at that point?
No.
NBC5 Investigates obtained a copy of this other memo dated just 3 days before the escape, warning that Joseph Banks had made a highly publicized threatening remark in court. The memo said, "We better watch this guy. It'll be very embarrassing if he does something foolish."
Did they check the windows in that cell?
They couldn't have.
The Bureau of Prisons declined comment on our story, citing an ongoing investigation and saying escapes are rare. We don't know how the inmates broke the window, what tools they used to widen the opening and remove the bars so they could get out. But we were surprised to learn inmates have access to clothes irons. And so was Associate Professor ProfMostovoy, an expert on glass at the Illinois Institute of Technology.
I just find it inconceivable that there would be any need for having an iron in a prison cell.
The professor says the sharp edge of an iron can break glass. The hot side can cause cracks and damage glass, especially on a cold December day.
It'll be hot on the inside, cold on the outside. That will produce a high stress in the glass.
Now, this is just a demonstration on glass we bought at a hardware store. We don't know what kind of glass is used at the MCC, and again, we don't know if an iron was used in the escape. But Officer Mills says, whatever the case, the iron should go.
Take a hammer and put it on the stove.
And that's what they have at the Metropolitan Correctional Center today?
Yes.
Still?
Yes.
A prison that had one of the most daring and embarrassing escapes in the history of Chicago. An escape everyone agrees should never have happened.
How could the Metropolitan Correctional Center miss this?
That's a question I couldn't answer.
Who can?
That would have to be the people who received this memo.
Again, prison officials declined to comment on the memos, but today released a statement saying inmates at MCC are permitted to use irons in the common area of each unit, but cannot retain irons in their cells. MCC Chicago is evaluating this practice as part of continued efforts to enhance security. And a final point, Allison, as you remember, both men were eventually recaptured.
So much about the story is hard to believe. That rope was out there for a week. What's the theory behind what these convicts were doing with this rope out there that long?
Well, one theory, practice. They wanted to go outside to make sure that this plan was going to work, practice it up before they made the big break.
Well, I can't wait to see what the MCC says to what you guys have found out.
We're waiting.